Few fantasy series captured the contradictions of growing up the way The Magicians did. SYFY's adaptation of Lev Grossman's novels balanced playful world-building with storylines of new adult themes, like depression, trauma, and the slow, uneven work of finding family. It was a show that didn't hide its messiness. Maybe that's why its later choice didn't land as intended. When The Magicians killed off Quentin Coldwaters in Season 4, the scene didn't feel daring or surprising. It felt like the writers had broken something essential. A series that once prided itself on bending fantasy rules had suddenly fallen back on one of the most dispiriting tropes around. The disappointment wasn't simply about killing a main character. We know TV history is full of that. The problem was what Quentin's exit said about the show itself. Survival and renewal, the themes that made The Magicians different from other fantasy shows, were abandoned, slipping into all too familiar conventional character exits. The Magicians betrayed its audience by writing Quentin Coldwater out of the show. Jason Ralph as Quentin Coldwater holding a book in The Magicians. Quentin Coldwaters was far different than most fantasy heroes. His magic often failed, he never had stable relationships, and he was a wanderer with no sense of purpose. Yet those flaws made Quentin one of the most powerful Magicians characters. He was a vessel for depression, queer representation, and self-doubt, evidence that damaged people can take the spotlight. But Quentin's death in the Season 4 finale severed all of that build-up. What was presented to us as a sacrifice could easily be read as suicide, which was deliberately open to interpretation. Fans saw themselves in Quentin's struggles, so the moment felt like abandonment. A character designed around survival through hardship was suddenly denied the chance to keep surviving. But this betrayal dug deeper than Quentin's characterization. The Magicians had built trust by proving that damaged, uncertain people could still shape extraordinary worlds. To some degree, genre stories require payoff, so when an early promise fails to deliver, all it leaves is the bitter impression that, for someone like him, sacrifice was inevitable. Removing one of the few LGBTQ+ main characters in fantasy TV only amplified the disappointment. Season 4 had finally begun to explore Quentin's relationship with Elliot, teasing what a queer love story could look like in a magical school setting. Rather than move fantasy storytelling forward, the series stumbled into one of TV's most regressive, remove-your-gaze cliches. Why Quentin actor Jason Ralph left The Magicians. Jason Ralph as Quentin Coldwater looking surprised in The Magicians. Jason Ralph's exit wasn't sudden or contentious. The showrunners confirmed that he took part in the conversations that shaped Quentin's ending, and Ralph spoke openly about his gratitude for the role. His decision came from a desire to explore new projects, a natural career step rather than a rupture with The Magicians. Cast shifts happen regularly, and strong ensembles often adapt without unraveling. What set this situation apart was how the show chose to handle it by insisting Quentin's departure was both permanent and deeply symbolic. The series widened the gap between what fans had invested in and what the writers delivered. In interviews, Ralph remained diplomatic. He praised the show, his co-stars, and the chance to embody such a layered character. That made the contrast even clearer, his professionalism versus the writer's dramatic framing. Fans never blamed him for leaving, their frustration centered on how the story turned his absence into trauma. There was another option. Quentin's exit could have deepened the ensemble dynamic or shifted focus without erasing his legacy. Instead, the series leaned into the tragic moment in its last season. What should have been a respectful send-off became a source of bitterness, leaving many viewers convinced the actor's departure was used as justification for a shocking twist. The Magicians never recovered after Quentin's departure. Jason Ralph as Quentin Coldwater and Olivia Taylor-Dudley as Alice Quinn sitting in wooden chairs in The Magicians. Quentin wasn't the only character who mattered in The Magicians, but he gave the story its center. His struggles with mental health and his uneven resilience kept the show's constant swirl of magicians' gods, quests, and crises tied to something human. Once he was gone, that grounding perspective disappeared, and the series never regained the same weight. Up to this point Julia, Elliot, and Margot remained compelling, and some of their arcs shone. Without Quentin's lens, though, the narrative often hurried between crises, leaving a glaring hole that only Quentin could have filled. The imbalance showed itself quickly in Season 5. Julia's grief pushed her into reckless quests, with new magical burdens stacking up before her old ones had settled. Elliot, once positioned for growth, drifted into stagnation under the weight of mourning. And Margot had to juggle extremes, delivering biting comedy in one breath and heavy emotion in the next. Viewers picked up on it quickly. Discussion of the final season compared to the previous Magician seasons often circled back to the gap Quentin left behind. The show had lost the thread that gave meaning to its magical realism. By the series finale, though, the cultural conversation had cooled, and its end passed without much noise.